Welcome to the InnoGuide podcast, where we share the works of authors and mentors to guide innovation. I'm your host, Bob Boudelier. This podcast, my website, my Substack newsletter, and my community are focused on helping you discover the secrets of innovation in the age of AI. Since I don't rely on paid ads, I want to thank our customers who bring me onto their programs on a fractional basis for up to 10 to 12 weeks as a technical product accelerator to work alongside their teams, help them develop products smarter and faster without adding risk, while bringing human-centered AI skills into their organizations. This frees up executives to do their work while I work with their teams. You can learn more at www.innoguide.net. In this episode, number 88, I'll be sharing Steal Like an Artist by Kleon. Before we jump into the book's insights, it's helpful to understand the central idea behind Steal Like an Artist. Kleon challenges one of the biggest myths about creativity, the belief that truly innovative work must be completely original. His argument is simple but powerful. Nothing is created in a vacuum. Every idea, every invention, every piece of art is built on the ideas that came before it. The real skill of creative people is learning how to recognize great ideas, study them deeply, and then transform them into something new and useful. Cleon doesn't mean plagiarism. What he means is creative recombination. Innovation happens when you collect influences, understand how they work, and then adapt them through your own experiences, constraints, and perspective. Throughout the book, he shares 10 principles for building a creative life. Ideas like starting before you feel ready, learning from your heroes, using constraints to spark creativity, maintaining side projects, and consistently sharing your work with others. The message is practical. Creativity isn't about waiting for inspiration. It's about doing the work every day and letting your voice emerge through the process. For those of us working in fields like medtech innovation, this concept is especially relevant. Breakthrough products rarely appear fully formed. They evolve from prior technologies, clinical insights, engineering techniques, and lessons learned from earlier devices. In other words, innovation often looks less like sudden invention and more like thoughtful recombination of existing ideas into something better for patients and clinicians. So as you listen to this episode, think about Cleon's advice through the lens of engineering and product development, if that's your field. The challenge isn't to invent something from nothing, but rather to study great work, borrow intelligently, adapt boldly, and build something that moves the field forward. That's the spirit of Steal Like an Artist. Without further ado, please enjoy this episode. Let's get started. Austin wants to talk with you about something he's figured out over nearly a decade of making art. When people offer advice, they're really just having a conversation with who they used to be. That's what this is. Them talking to their younger self. But here's what's interesting. When he started sharing these ideas with others, he realized the ideas weren't just for artists. They're for anyone trying to bring creativity into their work or in their lives. So whether you're a painter, a writer, a business person, or just someone looking to inject a little originality into what you do, this is for you. Let's start with the question every artist gets asked. Where do you get your ideas? The honest answer? You steal them. Now, before you panic, let me explain what I mean. The way artists see the world is simple. They look for things worth stealing, then move on to the next thing. That's really all there is to it. When you adopt this mindset, you stop worrying about what's good or bad. You're only concerned with what's worth taking and what isn't. Everything is fair game. If you don't find something worth stealing today, you might find it tomorrow, next month, or next year. Here's what a lot of people don't realize. When someone calls something original, 9 times out of 10, they just don't know where the actual sources came from. The truth is nothing comes from nowhere. All creative work builds on what came before. As the Bible says, there's nothing new under the sun. Some find that depressing, but I find it liberating. If we're freed from the impossible burden of being completely original, we can stop trying to make something out of nothing and embrace influence instead of running from it. Think about it this way. Every new idea is really just a remix or a mashup of previous ideas. And here's a trick you learned in art school. Draw 2 parallel lines. How many lines do you see? Well, there's the first line, the second line, and then there's the invisible line of negative space between them. 1 + 1 = 3. That's how ideas work. You're a mixture of your mother and your father, but you're also bigger than the sum of their parts. You have an ancestry of ideas just like you have a family tree. You can't pick your biological family, but you can absolutely pick your teachers, your friends, and the music you listen to, the books you read, and the movies you watch. You become a mashup of the influences you let into your life. So here's your job. Become a collector, not a hoarder, mind you. There's a difference. Hoarders gather indiscriminately. Artists collect selectively, choosing only things they truly love. Austin says, his mother used to tell me, garbage in, garbage out, and I hated hearing it, but she was absolutely right. You're only going to be as good as the material you surround yourself with. When studying your craft, don't try to devour your entire discipline at once. Instead, pick one artist or thinker you love and study everything about them. Then find 3 people that person admired and learn about them. Climb that tree as far as you can, looking at yourself as part of a creative lineage that helps you feel less alone in your own work. Finally, remember that your school and education are different things. Whether you're in formal school or not, it's your job to educate yourself. Be curious. Google everything. Always be reading. Carry a notebook everywhere. Get used to jotting down thoughts, copying passages, recording overheard conversations. Keep what I call a swipe file, a collection of things worth stealing. It's your creative resource bank, and whenever you need inspiration, you open it up and see what speaks to you. Don't wait until you know who you are to get started. Fake it till you make it. Many people are held back from doing creative work by the fear of not knowing who they are yet or what they're supposed to be doing. Here's the truth on that. You don't need to have it all figured out before you start. In fact, it's in the act of making things that you actually discover who you are. So stop waiting. You're ready. Start making stuff. You might be scared. That's natural. There's something called imposter syndrome that runs rampant in educated people. It's the feeling that you're faking it, that you have no idea what you're doing. But here's what he wants you to know. None of us do. Ask any truly creative person, and they'll be honest with you. They don't know where the good stuff comes from. They just show up every day and do their work. This is where Shakespeare comes in. About 400 years ago, he wrote in As You Like It that all the world's a stage, and all of us are just players. In other words, fake it till you make it. I absolutely love this phrase because there are 2 beautiful ways to read it. First, pretend to be something you're not until you actually become it. You dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Second, you pretend to be making something until you actually make something real. Think about Patti Smith's memoir, Just Kids, which tells the story of how she and photographer Robert Mapplethorpe learned to be artists by pretending to be artists. There's this perfect scene where they dress up in their hippie gear and go to Washington Square Park. A tourist couple sees them and the wife says to her husband, "Take their picture, I think they're artists." He disagrees, thinks they're just kids. But here's the point. All the world's a stage, and creative work is a kind of theater. Your studio or desk is your stage, your clothes are your costume. Your tools are your props, and time is your script. Let's be clear about something. Nobody is born knowing who they are or what their style is. We learn by copying our heroes. And I want to emphasize, I'm talking about practice here, not plagiarism. Copying is like a mechanic taking apart a car to understand how it works. It's reverse engineering. We learn to write by copying the alphabet. Musicians learn by practicing scales. Painters learn by reproducing masterpieces. Even the Beatles started as a cover band. Paul McCartney has said he emulated Buddy Holly, Little Richard, Elvis. Everyone around him did too. They only started writing original songs to keep other bands from playing their set. As Salvador Dali said, those who do not want to imitate anything produce nothing. So who do you copy? Your heroes? The people who inspire you? The people you want to be? The songwriter Nick Lowe says you start out rewriting your hero's catalog. And here's the thing, don't steal from just one hero, steal from all of them. As one cartoonist told him, if you're influenced by one person, everyone says you're the next whoever. But if you steal from 100 people, everyone says you're so original. There's something important here. Don't just steal the style, steal the thinking behind it. You want to see like your heroes, not just look like them. You want to glimpse into their minds and understand how they think. That's where emulation comes in. Kobe Bryant stole all his basketball moves from watching his heroes. But he realized he couldn't pull them off exactly because his body was different. So he adapted them to make them his own. That's when imitation becomes emulation. And here's the beautiful thing about being human. We're incapable of making perfect copies. Our failure to copy perfectly is exactly where we discover our own unique voice. That's how we evolve. So copy your heroes, see where you fall short, and ask yourself, what's different about you? And that difference is what you amplify. In the end, transforming your hero's work into something uniquely yours. That's how you truly honor them. That's flattery. Write the book you want to read. Austin shares this great story. I still remember the day Jurassic Park came out. It was my 10th birthday, and I absolutely loved it. I walked out of the theater completely obsessed, and I couldn't wait for more. So the very next day, I sat down at our old PC and did what any obsessed kid would do. I wrote my own sequel. In my treatment, the son of the game warden, the one who got eaten by velociraptors in the original, goes back to the island with the granddaughter of the park's creator. One of them wants to destroy what's left of the park, the other wants to save it, and naturally they fall in love and have all these wild adventures. It was exactly what I wanted to see more of. I didn't have a name for what I was doing back then. What I was writing was fan fiction, stories based on characters and worlds that already existed. I saved it to the hard drive and feeling pretty proud of myself. Then a few years later, the real Jurassic Park 2 came out. And honestly, it wasn't as good as the sequel I'd imagined. That's the thing about sequels in our heads. They're always better than reality. This experience taught him something crucial, though, about creative work that took him years to fully appreciate. When young writers ask, what should I write? And they always do. The standard advice is usually write what you know. But here's the problem with that. It almost always leads to boring stories where nothing interesting happens. The real secret is different. Write what you like. Write the kind of story you actually want to read. The same principle applies beyond writing, too. Works for your career, your life choices, everything. Whenever you're stuck deciding what to do next, just ask yourself, what would make a better story? Think about it this way. We make art because we love art. We're drawn to certain kinds of work because we're inspired by the people creating that work. And here's something that might blow your mind. All fiction, really all of it, is fan fiction in some form. I love the example of Bradford Cox from the band Deer Hunter. When he was a kid, there was no internet, so he had to actually wait until the official release day to hear his favorite band's new albums. He turned this into a game. He'd sit down and record his own fake version of what he thought the new album might sound like. Then, when the real album came out, he'd compare his version with the actual songs. And guess what? Many of the songs he created in this way actually became real Deer Hunter songs. That's the power of creating from inspiration rather than from constraint. When you love something, you're desperate for more of it. You crave sequels, more albums, new books from your favorite authors. So why not channel that desire into something productive? Here's what he wants you to do. Think about your favorite work. Think about your creative heroes. What did they miss? What didn't they make? What could they have done better? If they were still alive, what would they be making in today's world? If all your favorite creators got together and collaborated, what would they make if you were leading the team? Go make that stuff. The manifesto is simple. Draw the art you want to see, start the business you want to run, build the products you want to have, play the music you want to hear, write the books you want to read, do the work you want to see done. Using your hands to get your ideas flowing. This segment might seem counterintuitive in our modern world. Why you should step away from your computer if you actually want to create better work. We become so dependent on our digital devices that we've forgotten something fundamental. John Cleese said it best. We don't know where we get our ideas from. What we do know is we don't get them from our laptops. And my favorite cartoonist, Linda Barry, reminds us, in the digital age, don't forget to use your digits. Your hands are literally the original digital devices, and we need to use them. Now, I love my computer, I really do, but I think computers have taken something away from us. That tangible feeling of actually making something. When we're working on a laptop, we're just typing and clicking. It's abstract, it doesn't feel real. The artist Stanley Donwood, who creates all of Radiohead's album artwork, describes it perfectly. Computers put a sheet of glass between you and whatever's happening. You never really touch what you're creating unless you print it out. Just look at someone sitting at a computer. They're completely still, completely immobile. Your body matters for your creative work. Watch a great musician perform or a great leader give a speech. They're moving, engaging physically. And here's the fascinating part. Our bodies and brains work both ways. If you just start going through the motions, strumming a guitar, shuffling sticky notes around, kneading clay, the physical motion actually kickstarts your brain into thinking. I learned this the hard way in college, he says. My creative writing workshops required everything to be double-spaced in Times New Roman font, and my work was terrible. It wasn't fun anymore. The poet K. Ryan points out that traditional workshops were actually places where people built things with their hands. Writer Brian Kitely describes a real workshop as airy, an airy, light room full of tools and raw materials where most of the work is hands-on. Everything changed for me when I brought analog tools back into my process. For my first book, Newspaper Blackout, every poem was made with a newspaper article and a permanent marker. That process engaged all my senses, the feeling of newsprint, watching words disappear under my marker lines, that faint squeaking sound, even the smell of the marker fumes. There was magic in it. It didn't feel like work. It felt like play. Here's another critical insight, though. Computers are great for editing and publishing, but they're terrible for generating ideas. There are too many opportunities to hit delete. The computer brings out the perfectionist in us, making us edit ideas before we even have them fully formed. Cartoonist Tom Gauld stays away from his computer during the thinking phase because once the computer's involved, things are on an inevitable path to being finished, where in my sketchbook the possibilities are endless. This is how I approach all my work now. I have 2 desks in my office, one analog and one digital. My analog desk has only markers, pens, pencils, papers, index cards, and newspaper. Nothing electronic allowed. This is where my work is born. Then I move to my digital desk with my laptop and scanner to edit and publish. So here's this challenge for you. Set up 2 workstations if you can. At your analog station, keep it electronics free. Grab some paper, pens, and sticky notes from the school supply aisle. Scribble, cut things up, tape them back together. Stand while you work. Pin things on walls, look for patterns. Once your ideas are flowing, move to your digital station to execute and publish them. When you lose momentum, head back to the analog side and play. I often do this with Miro, but of course one could do this in an analog fashion as well. What about side projects and hobbies? Are those important? Austin shares something he learned throughout his career that might just change how you think about your work. It's actually your side projects that take off. You know, the stuff you thought was just messing around, the play. That's where the real magic seems to happen. Here's his approach. Keep multiple projects going at once. I know that sounds chaotic, but hear me out. When you get tired of one project, you bounce over to another. Then, when one wears you down, you jump back to the first one. I call this productive procrastination, and it's a game changer. You stay engaged without burning out on any single thing. Now, here's something counterintuitive. You need to take time to be bored. I once heard a coworker say, when I get busy, I get stupid, and man, is that true. Creative people absolutely need downtime to just sit around and do nothing. Some of my best ideas come when I'm bored, which is actually why I never take my shirts to the cleaners. I iron them myself because it's tedious and the ideas start flowing. If you're stuck creatively, try washing dishes or taking a long walk. Even staring at a spot on the wall works. As the artist Maria Kalman puts it, avoiding work is the best way to focus my mind. Give yourself permission to mess around, get lost, and wander. You'll never know where it will lead you. Here's something crucial he learned from playwright Stephen Tomlinson. If you have multiple real passions, don't force yourself to choose just one. Keep them all. Tomlinson suggests that if you love different things, you spend time with all of them and let them talk to each other. Something magical will start to happen. He learned this the hard way. During his teenage years, he was obsessed with songwriting and playing in bands. Then he decided he needed to focus on writing alone. So he says, I barely played music for half a decade. That disconnect created what he called phantom limb pain, this constant ache for something missing from your life. About a year ago, he started playing in a band again. And honestly, he says, I'm feeling whole. Here's the crazy part. Rather than the music stealing time from my writing, it's actually feeding it. My brain is making new connections. The synapses are firing differently. In Austin, where he lives, about half the people he works with are musicians, account executives, developers, all kinds of professionals. And they'll all tell you the same thing. Music feeds into their work in ways they never expected. That's why having a hobby is so important. I'm talking about something creative that's purely for you, not for money, not for fame, just because it makes you happy. A hobby is something that gives but doesn't take. While my art is for the world to see, my music is just for me and my friends. He says, we get together every Sunday and make noise for a couple of hours, no pressure, no plans. It's regenerative. It's like church. So here's his final advice. Don't throw any of yourself away. Don't worry about some grand scheme or unified vision. And don't stress about whether your work has unity. What unifies it is the fact that you made it. One day you'll look back at everything you created and it will all make sense. Trust me on that, he says. So the secret is do good work and share it with people. This means putting yourself out there. Many people are always asking him, how do I get discovered? And honestly, he gets this. There's this real letdown that happens after you graduate. College is this amazing bubble where your professors are literally paid to listen to your ideas, and your classmates are paying tuition to be in the room. You never had a more captive audience, and frankly, you probably never will again. Then reality hits. The world doesn't really care what you think. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but Stephen Pressfield puts it perfectly. It's not that people are mean or cruel, they're just busy. And that's actually good news for you. See, you want attention only once you're doing really good work. When you're unknown, there's no pressure. You can experiment. You can fail without anyone watching. There's no public image to manage, no agent calling, no hangers-on. You'll never get that freedom back once people start paying attention to you and your work. So enjoy your obscurity. Seriously, use it while you have it. Now, if there was some magical secret formula to becoming known, I'd hand it over in a heartbeat. But the truth is simpler than that, and it's really just 2 steps. Do good work and share it with people. That's it. Step 1, doing good work, that's the hard part. There are no shortcuts. You have to make stuff every day. You're going to be bad at it for a while. You're going to fail, but you'll get better. Step 2 used to be nearly impossible, but now it's simple. Put your stuff on the internet. Social media can help with all of this. People ask me, what's the secret of the internet? Well, here it is. Wonder at something, then invite others to wonder with you. Wonder about the things nobody else is thinking about. If everyone's wondering about apples, go wonder about oranges. The more you share your genuine passions, the more people connect with your work. I actually get a lot of inspiration from Bob Ross, he says. You know, the painter with the afro and the happy little trees on PBS. He taught people how to paint. He gave his secrets away. Same with Martha Stewart. She knows how to make your life awesome and gives everything away. People love it. They respect you for it, and sometimes they'll even buy what you're selling. When you open up your process and let people in, something magical happens. You learn. I've learned so much from the submissions to my newspaper blackout site. Plus, I find things worth stealing in terms of ideas and inspiration. So here's something important, though. You don't have to put yourself online only because you have something finished to say. You can use the internet and social media to figure out what you want to say. It's not just a place to publish polished ideas. It's an incubator. It's where you develop work that isn't fully formed yet. Some artists worry that being online will make them lazy, but I found the opposite is true. Most blogs and websites show your latest post first, so you're only as good as your last post. This keeps you sharp. That container you create actually inspires you to fill it. Whenever I felt lost, I look at my website and ask, what can I put here next? You don't need to share everything. Sometimes it's better if you don't. Share a sketch, share a snippet, give people a glimpse of your process. Share a useful tip you've discovered. Share an interesting article or a good book recommendation. You have control over what you reveal. And if you're worried about people stealing your ideas, don't be. As Howard Aiken said, if your ideas are any good, you'll have to ram them down people's throats. Your ideas aren't going anywhere. I love that. So get out there and share them. Next, we'll discuss how to find our creative community. Geography is no longer our master. Austin grew up in the middle of a cornfield in southern Ohio, and honestly, all he wanted was to get out. He wanted to be somewhere that actually had things happening. He now lives in Austin, Texas, which is this vibrant hub of artists and creative people. It's hip and energetic, and if the word hip is even used anymore, in his words, it's hip and energetic, and it's full of exactly the kind of scene I dreamed of escaping to as a kid. But here's what's wild. About 90% of his actual mentors and peers don't live here with him. They live everywhere. He knows them through the internet. My whole creative life has shifted to the online world, he says. Instead of bumping into fellow artists at local galleries or coffee shops, I'm having conversations with Twitter buddies and following people through Google Reader. Of course, this is before Facebook. And that's completely changed how he thinks about geography and creativity. The big takeaway here is that you genuinely don't have to relocate to become part of the community you're interested in. If you're stuck somewhere, you're too old, too young, broke, geographically bound, don't lose hope. There are people out there who share your interests, and you can connect with them right now wherever you are. That said, while you're building those online connections, you can also create your own world around you physically. Surround yourself with books and objects you love. Put things on your walls. Make your immediate environment reflect who you are and who you want to become. Franz Kafka, speaking about a century before the internet even existed, said something brilliant. It isn't necessary that you leave home. Sit at your desk and listen. Don't even listen, just wait. Don't wait. Be still and alone. The whole world will offer itself to you. What you really need is some space and some time, a place to work and time to do it, periods of self-imposed solitude. He says, I actually engineered this into my life now. Even though I have a car and a mobile phone that keep me constantly connected, I ride the bus to and from work because those 20 minutes matter. I go to a barbershop without Wi-Fi where I can wait a few hours. I keep my laptop shut at the airport. I spend time at the library. I always carry a book, pen, and a notepad. Those aren't inconveniences, they're necessities for creative work. But here's the thing, distance and difference are absolutely crucial for creativity. Our brains get too comfortable in our everyday surroundings. At some point, you need to leave home. You need to go somewhere that makes you uncomfortable, where people do things differently. When he was 19 and 20, he lived in Italy and England, and that fundamentally changed his life. But honestly, foreign travel doesn't have to mean crossing the ocean. For someone like him from rural Ohio, Texas was practically Mars. Sometimes it still is, he says. When choosing where to live, he'd argue that bad weather actually leads to better art. You can stay inside and work instead of being tempted to go outdoors. He got tons of work done during the brutal Cleveland winters, and now he's equally productive during those wicked hot Texas summers. It also helps to live around interesting people, not just people doing exactly what you do. He finds it too incestuous to only hang out with writers and artists. Austin's got filmmakers, musicians, tech people, plus the food matters. You need a place that feeds you creatively, socially, spiritually, and literally. The good news is, even when you move or travel or change locations, your online community comes with you. They're always right there on the internet waiting for you. This next section is about being kind, being nice, and remembering the world is pretty flat. Austin says, I'm here for one simple reason, to make friends. That's it. That's the whole point. And look, in a world where everything we say can be screenshotted and shared instantly, the golden rule matters more than ever. If you talk about someone online, they're going to find out about it. Everybody's got Google alerts set up on their own names. So here's the real talk. The best way to defeat your enemies on the internet, ignore them. The best way to make friends, say genuinely nice things about people. I think Kurt Vonnegut says it best. You've got to be kind. It's that simple. Now, there's this old computer saying, garbage in, garbage out, which my mother said all the time, as did his. You're only going to be as good as the people you surround yourself with. In our digital world, that means actively following people who are smarter than you, people doing genuinely interesting work. Pay attention to what they're creating, what they're thinking about, what they're sharing. Harold Ramis, the actor and director from Ghostbusters, had this rule. Find the most talented person in the room and go stand next to them. Learn from them. Be helpful. He got lucky because Bill Murray was his friend. But here's the thing. If you're ever the most talented person in the room, you got to find another room. Now, I get angry, he says. I see stupid stuff online. I want to correct it. My wife actually yelled at me once to quit picking fights on Twitter and go make something instead. And she was right. But anger is actually one of his favorite creative resources. Henry Rollins talks about being both angry and curious. That's what drives him. Some mornings, when he can't get out of bed, he'll read Twitter until his blood boils, and he says, I'm fired up enough to jump up out of bed. But instead of venting that anger at people, he channels it into his work. So get angry, but keep quiet about it and do your work instead. Focus that energy. Here's something he learned about fan letters. They put pressure on the person receiving them. We want validation, right? We want approval. But his friend Hugh MacLeod nailed it. The best way to get approval is not to need it. If you truly love someone's work, you shouldn't need them to respond. So here's what he does now. I write public fan letters. I write a blog post about someone's work I admire and link to them. I create something dedicated to my hero. I answer their questions or solve their problems online. Maybe they'll see it, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll respond, maybe they won't. The important thing is to show appreciation without expecting anything back, and you actually create something in the process. So here's the tough part about creative work. By the time people recognize something's valuable, you might be bored with it or, well, gone. You can't look for validation from the outside. Once work's out there, you can't control how people react. Good work looks effortless, but nobody sees the years of sweat behind it. Not everyone will get what you're doing. People will misunderstand you. Maybe they'll criticize you. So get comfortable with being ignored or misunderstood. Just be too busy working to care. The truth is, creative life is lonely sometimes, discouraging, full of rejection. Validation might just be for parking, but it feels amazing when people appreciate your work. He says, I've been lucky enough to have things take off online. For a couple of weeks, I'm riding this incredible high, but I know it'll fade. A few weeks later, I'll have a dark day where I want to quit. That's why he says I keep a nice email in a special folder. When those dark days come, I open that folder and read a couple of messages. Then I get back to work. Try it yourself. Keep a praise file instead of a rejection file. Don't live in past glory, but keep it for when you need that list. So how does he get work done? He says, be regular and orderly in your life. In essence, be boring. So this is something he talks about, the unsexy, unglamorous reality of what it takes to do creative work. And he says, to be honest with you, I'm just a regular guy. I've got a 9 to 5. I live in a quiet neighborhood with my wife and my dog. That's it. The romantic image of the tortured artist doing drugs and sleeping with everyone, that's played out. And that's for people who want to die young. Here's the truth. Creativity is exhausting. If you waste your energy on chaos and dysfunction, you won't have anything left for your actual work. So eat breakfast, do some push-ups, take long walks, get sleep. He says, I'm going to burn slow and actually see my grandkids. Thank you very much. Now, let's talk about money, because most people avoid thinking about it entirely. Don't do that. His grandfather used to tell his dad, son, it's not the money you make, it's the money you hold on to. Get a budget, live within your means, pack your lunch, don't buy expensive coffee. The real art is saying no to consumer culture. But most of us need a day job, at least at first, and that's fine. A day job gives you money, it connects you to other people, and it gives you structure. It also means nobody can tell you what to do with your art. You're not dependent on selling it to survive. He says, I've had library jobs, web design work, copywriting gigs. Each one taught me something I used later. The biggest sacrifice is time, of course, but the day job gives you something invaluable, a routine. And routine might actually matter more than having tons of free time. You have to stay in the groove. When you fall out of it, the work feels terrible because you know it's just going to suck until you get back in flow. So the solution is simple. Find the time you can carve out and stick to it. Do the work every day. No holidays, no excuses, just keep going. What you'll discover is that work gets done in the time available. You'll be surprised at what you can accomplish with consistent daily effort. Write 1 page a day for a year and you get a novel. Land a few dozen client pitches and you get promoted. Use a calendar. Get one that shows the whole year. Break your work into daily chunks, and when you finish, mark a big X. As the comedian Jerry Seinfeld says, after a few days, you'll have a chain, and your only job becomes not breaking the chain. It works. Also, keep a logbook. Nothing fancy, just a daily record of what you did, what project you worked on, where you went, what you experienced. Over years, these small details become invaluable. You're tracking how far your ship has sailed. Finally, this might be the most important thing. Who you're with matters enormously. Your partner, your collaborators, your friends. Marry well. It takes a real champion to be married to someone obsessed with creative work. They become the maid, the cook, the motivational speaker, the editor all at once. A good partner keeps you grounded. That's it. Boring, orderly, disciplined life. That's what makes real original work possible. What about constraints? Do you get creative freedom through limitations? Creativity is really subtraction. We're living in this crazy time where information is everywhere, and honestly, the abundance can be paralyzing. When you think you can do anything, when you have unlimited options, unlimited time, unlimited resources, it actually kills your creativity. Nothing's more terrifying than limitless possibilities. The way to break through creative block isn't to remove obstacles. It's actually the opposite. The best creative work happens when you place some real limitations on yourself. I know it sounds backwards, but trust me on this, he says. Limitations mean freedom. Here are some of his practical examples. What if you wrote a song during your lunch break, or painted a painting using just one color, started a business with zero startup cash, shot a movie on your iPhone with just a couple of friends, built something functional out of the spare parts you had lying around? The point is, stop making excuses about what you don't have. Make things with what you've got right now today. He continues, my favorite example of this really drives the point home. You know Dr. Seuss, the legendary children's author? Well, he wrote The Cat in the Hat using just 236 different words. That was impressive enough, but then his editor threw down a challenge. Could he write a book using only 50 different words, just 50? That's incredibly restrictive, right? But Dr. Seuss took that constraint and created Green Eggs and Ham, one of the best-selling children's books of all time. He won the bet, and we got a masterpiece because of those limitations. Then there's this artist named Paul Steinberg who said something really profound about this. He pointed out that what we actually respond to in art isn't just technical skill or unlimited resources. The artist's struggle against their limitations. Think about that. It's what the artist chooses to leave out that makes the work interesting. The tension between what's shown and what isn't shown, that's where the magic happens. Jack White, the musician, put it perfectly when he said that telling yourself you have all the time in the world, all the money, every color on the palette, anything you want, that just kills creativity, and he's right. Here's something else to think about. What makes us interesting as people isn't just what we've experienced, it's also what we haven't experienced. Those gaps matter. The limitations matter, and the same principle applies to your work. You've got to embrace your constraints and keep moving. The real insight here is that creativity isn't about stuffing everything in. It's about making intentional choices about what to leave out. In this information-rich world, the people who actually get ahead are the ones who figure out what to exclude so they can focus on what really matters to them. So here's my challenge to you, he says. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop telling yourself you need more time, more money, better equipment, or more experience. Take whatever constraints you have, and I guarantee you have some, and use them as your creative fuel. Place some real limitations on your next project and see what happens. Because in the end, creativity is just as much about what you choose to leave out as what you put in. Choose wisely and have fun with it. At the end of the book, Austin added an afterword, talking about how this book came to be, where it's gone, and what he's learned watching it make its way out into the world. He says, it's pretty fitting that I'm writing this afterword during a global pandemic. The book actually started out as a viral blog post, and there's something darkly poetic about that timing. Ideas spread like plagues, right? They move through networks of connected minds. But ideas don't just automatically take hold. They need minds that are ready to receive them and pass them on. His editor once reminded him of something Marshall McLuhan's editor said. A successful book cannot venture to be more than 10% new. And honestly, that's what this book does. It's a collage of other people's ideas, and he's totally okay with that. Old ideas have staying power. They've been around long enough to prove themselves. The central concept of this book, that nothing is completely original, is ancient. He quotes Ecclesiastes, saying, "There's nothing new under the sun." But we know from Egyptian poetry that people were complaining about used up good words nearly 4,000 years ago. Mike Watt, the bassist, put it perfectly. The only thing new is you finding out about it. For every person born on this planet, the originality problem becomes new again. What about understanding influence? This really bothered him. The way we talk about influence is backwards, he says. When we say Basquiat was influenced by Van Gogh, it makes it sound passive, like Van Gogh did something to Basquiat. That's wrong. Basquiat was doing something with Van Gogh. Critic K.K. Ruthven pointed out that our language gets in the way here. The receptor, that's the artist, takes the initiative. Influence isn't passive. It's active. You don't receive influence, you take it. How about the word steal? People always asked him why he used the word steal in the title. Honestly, he said, because I wasn't original enough to come up with something better. Tons of artists had used it before. It's provocative, maybe even dangerous, but it serves a purpose. When you think like a thief, you pay attention to the world differently. You're always casing the joint, looking for your next bit of inspiration. There should be honor amongst thieves, and this book tries to establish a code. But yeah, some people take the title too literally. Booksellers have told him it's the most shoplifted book in their stores. Those readers either didn't actually read it or they forgot the like an artist part. To steal like an artist means you don't get caught. What about the mutation of ideas? Here's what's fascinating and a little overwhelming. He's seen steal like an artist spray painted on brick walls in countries he's only dreamed about visiting. The phrase traveled further than he has. At this point, it belongs more to everyone else than to him. But there's a downside. Our culture is drowning in spin-offs, sequels, and remakes. The internet is one gigantic copy machine, churning out infinitely repeating memes. We're all under the influence, but it's our own influence now. We've been locked in this room too long, intoxicated by our own recycled air. T.S. Eliot said, real artists steal from sources that are remote in time, alien in language, or diverse in interest. You have to dig deeper. You have to search like an archaeologist through this landscape for anything fresh. So what does he say he's learned? You can't spend too much time looking back. Once you finish a creative project, it's kind of dead to you. He's moved on, and he hasn't changed the book much because, honestly, he says, who am I to change it now? It belongs to readers more than it belongs to me. When I read it now, he says, it feels strange. The words are alive, but with an energy I don't quite recognize. It's like looking at work from someone else entirely. He stole all that confidence from somewhere, and now we get to steal it from him. That's the circle. That's the whole thing. So that's the end of Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. I enjoyed this book, and I truly recommend picking up a copy because it's a fun read and it's presented in short, digestible segments. Remember that our website is www.innoguide.net, where we have many resources for innovators, including those who want to get timeline slip under control in their medical product development process, including learning how to leverage AI in that process, learning how to build and use automations to help with that process, and to help those who want to build medical products that will support embedded machine learning now or in the future. And again, the machine learning stuff is more like the self-driving car stuff than like the ChatGPT stuff. Know you'll be learning it from someone who's worked in medtech for 30 years and has led teams who developed and delivered 66 medical products to market. I want to thank Steve McIntyre for producing this, and I really want to thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next time. That's a wrap.